my name is Hervé Lejoin, and I'm going to share this panel on the risk assessment on AI. And before I'm coming to, let's say, the people and the people who are around the round table, I would like just to give a bit of a, let's say, overview of where we are today. So it's clear that we live in a world where we are more and more dependent on AI. And clearly, you know, AI has been there for a long time, 30 years almost in industry and so on. But now with the new era of Gen AI coming, of course, you know, it has raised a new level and it has raised the bar in terms of the way it's functioning and as well where it's going to impact our lives. So, and of course, you know, not only on Gen AI, but AI, there have always been some risk associated to it because, you know, AI is based on data and data that are injected into algorithm and then to produce models and then to predict and assess, automate, whatever. So there are, and this is very different from a standard program and a standard, let's say, classical technology program, which is basically very deterministic. And the AI, yes, it's not by essence. So then there are a lot of risk and associated to it, and certainly the security and safety. And the question is, how do we assess those risks now that is becoming more and more important? And how do we standardize eventually? And how standardization can help into doing that. So this is what we're going to try to respond in an hour. This is not a lot of time, but at least we have some good people around the table in order to be able to mention their point of view as well and how we can move forward from there. So let me just... So yes, so I'm going to let you, everyone, introduce yourself. I think it's better. You're better than me to say who you are. And Deepak, can you start?
Okay. All right. Good morning. First off, apologies. It's me who's the reason why we are talking in English today.
Not only you.
Not only. Oh, you know.
Two of us.
Don't give all the credit.
I see. We share the blame then. But I promise to learn French this time. Deepak, very briefly, did my PhD from Chicago, and then was a researcher at Bell Labs for a very long time, longer than I'd care to admit. And also an adjunct faculty at NYU, actually, during that time, New York University. And then co-founded what was Amelia, or what is now Amelia. It's a virtual agent, right? Used amongst others by BNP, for instance. And where I now work at EasyML, it's a machine learning platform, and there are a zillion such platforms. So what's so special about it? It's transparency. We'll talk more about it. So EasyML is where I'm working currently. It's an independent IP financial spun-off from Amelia/IPsoft. And so I'd love to hear your views as well about AI and how it impacts cybersecurity in very real ways as it relates to standardization. Thank you.
Next to Hervé, it's me, okay. Good morning, everybody. Sébastien Vieux, I'm from Storm Shield. I'm the head of product management. And maybe you know Storm Shield, it's a big cybersecurity editor in Europe. And of course, we are working around the IA to improve the protection, the security of our product. And it's also a big challenge for us to make IA secure, use IA to protect, but ensure that IA doesn't become a vulnerability itself. So that's why I'm here today to talk about that with you.
Hello, I'm Patrick Menez. I did a master in neural network and fuzzy logic expert systems back in the US a few years ago, more than I care to accept. I'm now the Deputy Group Chief Security Officer of AXA, and I'm looking at AI with a very positive mindset, knowing all the opportunities that AI can present, but at the same time with a bit of anxiety, knowing how we can defend ourselves against this type of technologies and protect ourselves and make sure that we have a responsible and secure AI.
Thanks, Patrick. Hi, everyone. My name is Sana, and I work in Bureau Veritas. And Bureau Veritas is a company, so-called TIC company, doing testing, inspection, and certification. I've been in cybersecurity for over 12 years now. I started as IT consultant. Recently, I've been doing more industrial cybersecurity. So throughout this panel, I'm going to give example from industry, because I think this is our safety. This is really important. I don't consider myself an AI expert, but I'm a cybersecurity expert because I saw different fields. And in the end, to be honest, the principles of cybersecurity are the same. So it's really interesting to talk here with people who actually know more about AI than I do. But I can add my experience in cybersecurity in different IT, IoT, and OT field. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So now let's start going into deep. So, and maybe Sébastien, starting by you, what are the specific risks around AI in terms of, and how can we assess them? But then back to one point, you know, in the title there was sécurité in French, and then safety in English. So basically, there is first here something to say about is that there is safety and security, and which is different. So maybe Sébastien.
Yes, we talk about safety when it comes to human security. When you're going to hurt yourself. So AI can be dangerous if it's going to hurt someone. And security is more systems, informational security, servers, application, etc. And no, the next question was what about the risk of AI? How can we assess them? We are going to talk about frameworks, risk analysis during this roundtable. But first, what I'm really sure right now is that we must remember that AI is still a program. It's still a software with the same vulnerabilities as any software. Only it's a more complicated one with many more data involved, many more engine and specification of the engine involved, and we have to ensure that the whole chain is secure, like in today's software. You've heard about a lot of vulnerability on software, like medical software with data exfiltration or stuff like that. Just imagine the same with a big IA program, and just imagine if the vulnerability enables the fact that you can change the decision of an IA and make it, let's say, choose the wrong decision, even on an informational system. How if the IA is responding in the wrong way? Maybe you can attack just by making the IA doing the wrong stuff. If you trick the IA in thinking that there's a big ransomware attack and it should disable all the network automatically, maybe if you attack the IA without any ransomware, you can make the whole network go down just by tricking the IA. And it can be done with a lot of attack. We will talk about supply chain attacks. And for me, that's a big part of the risk assessment. And we will also, like Deepak said, we will talk about transparency. Today, we really don't know what is in the box. What is in the IA box that you are going to buy? You don't know. Nobody knows. And I'm not even sure that the guy who built the IA knows really what's in the data that has been used to train his IA. So you said it's not deterministic. Well, I'm not sure about that. For me, IA is still deterministic. It's just too complicated for the human brain to see the determination, but as a program, it's deterministic. We can talk about that too if you want.
So yeah, and maybe Patrick, you as your view with AXA in that world, because you're a big company, global brand, so you certainly have a...
Yes. So basically, just like a story. what happens last year is I started to get a number of CISOs in my companies coming to me and asking me, okay, Patrick, we are launching an AI project. How do we support them? Should we use a current security risk framework, or should we use a completely new one? Where is this AI coming from? And when we were talking about AI, they were mostly talking about Gen AI, and we had to come up with some support and some elements on this. So first, the first message is, and I concur with what Sebastian was saying, AI is not coming from nowhere. It's something which has been around for quite some time. There's been some breakthrough over the last few years, but we've been working on machine learning for quite some time. It still works on infrastructure that we master. It still relies on a number of applications, programs that we do control. So I would say a large part of a current security risk framework is applicable and could be used to secure regular AI projects. But then after, there is a number of attack paths, specific risk, which are very specific to AI. I mean, we think about adversarial attack, poisonings of data, supply chain attacks.
Gradient-based attack also?
Yeah. There is a number of attacks. I think recently we found about the sleeper, rogue sleeper type of attack in AI. So yes, there is a number of attacks which exist, which we need to enrich a security risk framework to actually accommodate with this attack. The NIST has released a framework that can be used. Google has released the framework that can be used. There is a number of frameworks which exist on the market. So I'd say that there is ways to enrich the security framework. And then the second thing, which is very important, is start training your team. You have to teach them, to explain them what is AI, to use it properly for the business teams and the security teams, because of course it creates some opportunities, but sometimes for the security team in particular, help them to learn and to manage their new risk framework, making sure that they understand how to properly support their business. And that's something which we are working a lot in AXA to do, because in the end, we see all the opportunities that it presents, but also the risk that it presents. You talk about the safety risk, which is something completely new for most of the information security professionals. We are not used to tackle or to integrate the safety risk. In AXA, we've decided to merge in the security functions, safety, security, and resilience. So trying to address all fields. So it's not something that's quite new for us, but still it's interesting that we've got some theories coming from information security. And last but not least, I'd like to mention the fact that on top of all those risks and frameworks that we need to put in place, we need to look at the compliance with the EUI Act, which is coming. And as you know, we can have up to 7% of the total turnover that could be fined if we are not properly using AI. And therefore, that requires quite a level of attention to ensure that we explain to the business how to properly use AI, what's possible, what's not possible in the European Union. There is a number of other regulations which exist in the world, which also are slightly constraining the way we use AI in our companies. So it's important also to keep in mind, like we did for GDPR, the compliance aspect of AI, and working together with the compliance function, data privacy functions, and other functions in the companies to tackle these problems collectively.
Thank you. Deepak, so with your experience in AI modeling since a long time and training and so on, and your view, so how would you see these risks around AI treated maybe in a different way or complementary way that we're just discussing now?
Yeah, both Sebastian and Patrick made some very critical observations. Patrick mentioned attacks, their proliferation. Yeah, we all know innovation is always a step ahead on the dark side, unfortunately. So, and therein lies the challenge with the traditional ways of doing things. How do you get ahead of a hacker who keeps innovating new ways? By the time you find out that this is how your security has been breached, and it happens all the time, it's a little too late with considerable financial impact. Can AI help? Yes, it can, but it comes with its own challenges. So in particular, let's say And we'll delve into more details, but let's say AI has been trained on some base data, as is known today, for how hackers attempt to breach. And then we'll make a leap of faith, and this is actually true, it's not so much of a leap of faith, that the AI system is capable of self-calibration and active learning, be it through reward reinforcement learning, be it through transfer learning, whatever mechanism. But it's capable of learning. Now, as the newer attacks come in, the AI system can detect the anomalies, right? Build the norm, alert the deviant. It can detect these anomalies and raise an alert, even though you have not formally trained it on that type of security breach. Great, wow, this is wonderful stuff, right? But it comes at a cost. The cost is, how do you manage AI, which has become a beast in and of itself now? It's behaving intelligently, adapting, morphing into different forms. See, the traditional mechanisms, and that's where standardization runs into trouble. The traditional mechanisms, for instance, ISO has AIMS, right? AI management system. Even those are based on the way in which software is considered from a traditional perspective. Meaning what? So there are things, roles defined, right? Well, you have leadership, you have planning, you have operations, you have support. And then there are a whole slew of rules or accomplices that these roles must implement, right? You have information-based, data-based understanding. You make inferences on those data. All kinds of associated rules are defined in things in a framework like AIMS. Notice each one of these requires a considerable lead period. Planning, leadership, great stuff, but it requires a careful examination of the software to say, this is its function, this is what it's supposed to do, here are the vulnerabilities, here's how we're going to harden it, here's how we're going to... How can you do that in an AI system that keeps evolving? Let alone, how do you even define boundaries around it so as to be able to stitch it down with a framework? And therein lies the big challenge that AI poses to standardization. So we'll talk more about it, but that was the primary point, Harvey.
Okay. And Anna, typically, now you are the one on the standardization side, so we'd love to hear your view on that.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I think my colleagues already mentioned everything. So I would like to maybe just summarize how I envision that. So basically, we see two types of risks. First, risks from AI being used in malicious purposes, and that's where we're talking about safety, right? Recently, I think it was 2 months ago, there was an incident, at that point, not an attack, but an incident when a robot on the factory killed a human that was there, the worker, because it thought it's a pallet. So he was supposed to pick up the pallet, but he actually tried to pick up a person. So the person died because of that. This is for me what is scary, because we use now AI for autonomous driving, for medical purposes, and so on. We are not used to, for software, thinking about safety, right? When we're talking about safety, we are talking about normally factories and so on, but now AI will be in the factory. And that's where we need to switch our mindset. Because when we talk about, let's say, risk to AI, for me, well, that was already mentioned for me, it's still a software. It still has an input, it has an output. We have a lot of different frameworks for risk assessment and so on. The only thing that we need to focus in this case is in terms of the life cycle of AI. There are two phases, training and inference. And in this case, the threat landscape will change because you will have different input. And then, well, let's say the risk assessment framework will be the same, risk will be different because you will have different data set used, different people training and different people actually using it. But for the rest, it's a software, the risks are the same. For me, the focus should be really safety when we are talking about the critical infrastructure, and that's why I said that I think my expertise in terms of the industrial cybersecurity really helps me to better understand this.
Okay, thank you. So now let's go into maybe some solutions, I don't know. So which criteria and standardize maybe criteria we should use to guarantee the safe development, because we are coming back to the safe development of and deployment of AI. So Patrick, maybe...
Yes, and I will start with, if you want to have a proper process which is respected and well deployed in a company, the first thing you need to think of is governance. And making sure that you've got the proper governance in place, proper responsibility and accountability place on that topic. When it comes to AI, AI is not a security topic, it's not an IT topic, it's not a business topic only, nor a data privacy or risk topic only. It requires basically all the functions to work together in a coordinated way with clear responsibility and clear role. There is a dimension of responsible. We cannot and we don't want to do whatever we want with AI. So it means that we need to put some boundaries. Next time we often talk about the freedom within boundaries. And I think for AI, we need to allow people to actually develop and experience, and we are sort of in a green field in many aspects on that topic. So we need to allow innovations, but with boundaries which are strong enough to actually make sure we don't, I would say, hurt the safety of our users, being the mental safety or the physical safety, that we don't, go too far, but at the same time have a proper way to discuss. Second aspect, if we want to have a proper process and a proper use of AI, is the training of the users, because AI can react in very different way depending on the type of input that you are using it for. And while you can try to control the output of the AI, you may not be able to control the input of the AI if you don't train the people which are using the AI in a proper way. So you need to help them to understand what AI is to be used for, how you can use it. So there is a part of our user trainings if you want to make the best use of the systems. And eventually, I think, and it's a good question on the table, should we go towards a certification of AI systems? Could be based on common criteria, could be based on a number of things, but we are not yet there. But that's something that maybe that should be considered as we do for normal software with proper certifications. How do we certify and how do we start to certify AI?
Thank you. So Deepak, you mentioned all the potential issues and so on. So how do you maybe come to some solutions?
Yeah, I wish I knew the answer. But there are certain best practices. So we've seen AI, to realize the full potential of AI, right? It's important that AI be left unchained, right? We talked about active learning, right? The fact that it can detect anomalies, adapt, and snip it in the bud well before cyber attacks currently are seized. So how do you make this AI beast behave then, now that you have unshackled it, and let it run free to realize its true potential and help us, right? Basically, we want to nip things in the bud. So certain best practices are around responsible AI, and I'll just hit on one piece of it, which is transparency. To make sure that your AI system, even as it's left free to arrest cyber attacks quickly and efficiently and cost effectively, that your AI systems are behaving in ways that are not inimical to the expected standards. Transparency of AI system is a must then, right? Not only must it arrest and say that oops, I stopped it, and you hadn't trained me on this, but I am an unsupervised learning mechanism, I detected it, I stopped it, but I'm also going to tell you, in addition to that, what were the signatures? Why did I take that potential action? This is why I'm doing this, so that it is held accountable. And you can always ensure that it's not doing something that is unknown and can at some point of time cause an issue. So that's one way, a best area practice, transparency of machine learning. That's important. So that's one possible way to look at it. There are others.
Okay. Sébastien, so what would be your view?
The perspective from a cybersecurity editor at this point, we are used at Stormshield to develop our product in a secure way. You know, we have the certification from common criteria, qualification from national security agencies, and for that we ensure that we develop in a very secure way our product with administration bastion, strict code review, strict code quality review, pen test, strict library review before adding them into the product, because you know library, we have a lot of them and they can be very tricky. They can also be compromised sometimes. So that's, for me, that's the basis for IA. We have to do the same for IA, and that's what we are doing. But there's a lot of new stuff in IA, like I will take one, samples. To train your IA, you have to take samples, and we make sure that our samples are not compromised, of course, because even a little, for example, in file detection, a little file that is considered clean and that is not clean will change completely the IA response. It can be, it's one, of course, it's called poisoning. It's one of supply chain attack that is possible. So we have to check and to protect samples. We have to check and to protect engines also, and engines parameters, because they also are very critical into how IA will respond. And for me, that's where we should work on dev process. We should ensure that we are doing IA secured by design. But I will open another topic, and for the next question, I think it's appropriate. You were talking about the robot. We can talk also about driving without touching the wheel. Yeah, autonomous driving. My question is, who is responsible in case of an accident? Do we want to, like in human error, we accept human error? Are we going to accept IA error? When I'm doing something stupid, when I'm driving and I'm killing someone by accident, I have insurance. I'm still responsible, but my insurance covers it. If tomorrow my car drive into two people and kill them, who is responsible? Is it Tesla? Is it me? Is the IA responsible? Is the guy who has been developing the IA? How do we do it? And who is going to take the risk to cover higher responsibility? Maybe it's going to be accepted, I don't know. We can accept that there's death or accident caused by IA, and I think we are going to do that at the end. But this is a very important part of the next question, normalization and ethical.
So Hannah, you as your view again as a kind of standardization body, so what would be the criteria for you?
Yeah, I would like to maybe add a bit on what Sebastian started discussing, because I fully agree. In the end, it's all about secure development lifecycle. We have already different frameworks. It all talks about risk-based approach. It talks about training the developers, training users, testing, and so on. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we need to think about, rather than AI as something separate, where do we implement that AI? Because in terms of the automotive cybersecurity, there is a regulation already where OEM are responsible for safety of so-called road users, so anyone in the car, outside of the car. So they should be already responsible for also putting AI in their car because it's up to them. Of course, you, in this case, as a developer of the product, needs to be responsible that you develop it in a secure way. But in my view, in the end, the OEM should be ultimately responsible to also make sure that they integrate in a secure way and the same. And in this case, yes, it's AI, but the regulation, the UNIC regulation already talks about it. It talks about supply chain, that they need to be in control of their risks. So indeed, rather than focusing on AI as something separate, focus on AI in which field is it implemented? Because in industrial cybersecurity, there is a good standard IEC 62443. In automotive, we have a regulation, we have a standard. In medical devices, because in this case, those standards were created with safety in mind rather than only cybersecurity. And that's where I think in AI, we didn't consider because we were used to normal software. So I would rather use this, let's say, the generic ISO 27K standard, because it already takes safety into consideration and risk to safety, because that's where we need to focus.
Yeah.
Maybe
Quick thing, Harvey, towards Sebastian. So, yes, your car runs into someone and kills them. Obviously, there is going to be penalties there. Someone's going to incur. So the question is, can we control autonomous driving in ways that minimizes this? Because it's unfortunate, right? So how do we do that? Why did it happen? So again, imagine that your AI system, in this case, autonomous vehicle, is transparent. And therefore, it's sharing what happened with what, at least in the United States, is Department of Motor Vehicles, let's say. It's saying, okay, a bunch of experts, here's why that accident happened. When the road is slippery with rain, to avoid anti-locking brake system, to avoid locking of the wheels, it doesn't brake as efficiently. That's the transparent message that comes back from the autonomous vehicle. Now the expert at Department of Motor Vehicle is going to say, this needs to be fixed. Goes back to Sebastian, says, Sebastian, in your data that you are using to train your autonomous driving, I'm going to surgically identify for you that you got to look at wet surface anti-locking brake system. Look at that aspect. I believe there is a certain data bias in there that is causing your autonomic system to fail. All of a sudden, you have made the entire community of experts part of your AI program, which they are currently not, because AI is a black box. They don't know A from B. Why it hit 2 people and they died? God only knows. Well, now they know. And they are able to influence the AI experts based on their experience as subject matter experts to say, how can you improve with surgical precision of how do you fix your data? You've certainly established a collaboration between the AI and the subject matter experts. And the same would apply to cybersecurity too. So just a suggestion.
Oh, it's very interesting. So now let's move to the next subject, which is about, in some way, we are talking about innovation, because we have seen that, and certainly, you know, in the last couple of years, with the emergence of generative AI, which is another subject, and push to another level some risk and some, let's say, control, because in some way, who controls the API of those guys, meaning Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever? Who controls their algorithm and their data they have been trained on? No one. So now it pushed to that. So, but it's a very, very important innovation as well. So in some way, we have here this kind of a issue between normalization, standardization, and innovation. So how can we manage that properly? So Patrick, would love to hear your view on that.
So I would say first, there is some boundaries. And the IA Act, by fixing this 7% fine, is clearly defining some quite strong boundaries. But I'd like to continue to elaborate on the image of the vehicle. And I think AI, just like when you are managing a vehicle, is something where you need to consider security and safety. Everybody wants to use a vehicle to move from one place to another to get where they want to go, but they will not get in if their safety was put in danger or if the security system was not at the right level. Nevertheless, as mentioned by Sébastien, you cannot control everything. And innovation is part of taking, I would say, a limited risk, a risk that you can control, a risk that you can transfer at some point to an insurance company, for example. But the idea is to have a proper level of risk with the proper countermeasure to actually unplug the system or stop the risk. I'd like to take the analogy of the pedal, the brake pedal and the speed pedal. Innovation is a speed pedal. And the faster you want to go, I would say the more reliance you need to have on your braking pedal. You want to make sure that no matter how fast you're going, you want to be able to brake at the right level to be ensured that you stop your car when you need to stop your car. So I think the more innovations you want to have in AI systems, the more security you want to bring in to ensure that you are actually able to actually keep control of your environment, of your systems. And maybe I'll say that you want to add on top of this brake pedal an airbag, just in case something goes south and you want to take care of it. So I'd say if you want to have innovations, you need to have boundaries and you need to have a proper security to support you in your systems.
Okay, and Deepak, you mentioned and this and some information about how you would treat the kind of again accident with an automated car. So how would you see as well between innovation and normalization? How would you see those two things living together?
Yeah, you know that's a really good point because the general view is that when you normalize, innovation is handicapped. It's in fact, if you bake normalization into your innovation process, then you will alleviate this concern, right? So think of your innovation process itself being systematically and methodically laid out, right? If you do that, then while you allow for innovation within, oh, here's the data coming ingestion, I'm talking in terms of AI, but it could apply to almost any field which drives from data. Here's the data coming in. Here's how we are planning to use this data. Here's the data governance capabilities that Patrick mentioned. Here's how we are going to manage this framework. Here's how we are going to analyze this data. These are the mechanisms we will use. Here's what all permissible limits within which AI framework will be allowed to work. That, in fact, itself requires innovation because in many ways, it's easy to say, oh, let me just be free and keep innovating all the time. A big part of innovation is also, how do I innovate mechanisms to make AI behave responsibly, right? If you think, that requires even more innovation. So just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. Anna.
Yes. Well, to be honest, we need to stay pragmatic, right? Because, well, the whole idea of AI is to boost innovation. So if we build too strict requirements, well, then there is no point of AI because there is no innovation. So we're being counterproductive. And I already mentioned that, well, it's important to think about safety. So let's focus on the areas where safety is actually affected. And let's build stricter boundaries and requirements there. So in AI Act, we already have high risks AI, right, where we're talking about health, industry, and automotive, and so on. Well, let's put more strict requirements, more strict audits requirements, and so on those type of AI. And things that are more for general entertainment and so on, well, that's where we can allow more innovation, boost innovation. Then when we test it on less critical areas, we can implement the same innovation because we already know that it's secure and it's already safe. Then we can start implementing it more slow in the more critical areas.
And Sébastien, where do you see that? Where should we pay attention, to these potential issues?
In cybersecurity, I'm not sure we are very fan of innovation. If I come to you with a new, let's say, I have an IA that is encrypting, with an encryption IA that is very secure. Would you trust it? Yeah? No? It's not IPsec. Do you want to trust my new IA encryption system? Yeah, no, you won't. So, yeah, innovation, why not? But it has to be, we need to have proof that it's efficient in cybersecurity. We are not very fan, again, to test innovation. Yeah, of course, we want deterministic cybersecurity, or at least something that we can rely on, So for me, yes, we are going to see innovation, and we are seeing innovation. But for us, as an example, our IA file detection system is backed up by a classical endpoint protection system, just to make sure that we are not missing something, and to improve the solution also. So I think there's going to be a little time to innovate and to put innovation in production. And secondly, in the most general part of innovation in IA in our world, I'm stunned that, again, we are not listening to Rabelais, who was saying science without conscience is only ruin of the soul. And I'm very afraid of what's going on today with generative AI, to see that kids are not even working on their homework. They are just asking ChatGPT to do it. And for me, the question is not if we should regulate or put some normalization. It's what we want for humanity, and how IA can help humanity to reach his goal. And I know it's a bit utopic what I'm saying here, but we have never think of it as a society, as a human being good, rather than business good, And today, IA is here just to make money, and again, of course. And for me, that's the problem.
Yeah, no, think of innovative ways to control innovation, right? and yeah, that one can think of ways.
Okay, so now let's move to the last part, which is about standards, because of course, since the IT has been moving and evolving, there has been more and more standards put in place in order, again, to secure it, to make sure that it's used in a good way, and so on. And companies have to prove that they are, let's say, on those standards. But now, how can those standards, because those standards have been built on the kind of, not say all technology, but a certain type of technology, and now we come with AI and generative AI. So how do you see the evolution of those standards, if any evolution should be necessary, and to make sure that, yes, it's still something we can control, but with standards or not? So, Anna, maybe you start.
Thanks. Yeah, well, I already mentioned, right? So there are so many standards right now. I don't believe that we need a new standard. I would rather say, okay, think about which field do you want to sell or use your AI okay, you want to use it in automotive. Well, there's ISO 21434, perfect standard. It actually talks about engineering. Well, it talks about engineering of vehicles, but part of the software is part of the vehicle. It tells you all the SDLC requirements. It thinks about safety, safety of the people, and so on. Then, of course, it is important to combine it with ISO 27K, because ISO 27K, a new version, also has small subsection about secure development. But of course, it's just not enough. So you need to be secure as a company who develops, but you also need to think about the product that you develop. If you want to sell in industrial world, IEC 62443 is the way to go. For the medical world, there is a medical standard. I don't remember the number, unfortunately. What I do believe that we need to create more guidance how to use those standards, right? So because, well, the company who is used to develop software in IT world is used to develop, let's say, based on the IT practices. But we need to think about safety and, let's say, operational technology in this case. Maybe create the guidance, okay, what type of threats you at least can consider. That's what they did in automotive sector, and that's what I like, because it was something new. Cybersecurity in automotive was not there 5 years ago at all. So in order for the companies to be able to do threat modeling, they created a list of potential threats. Of course, it's not a full list. You never say, okay, you can only look at those. But at least if the company never did threat modeling in terms of the safety, they can use it as a base. I would do the same in AI. Think about, okay, we have threats in the training phase, we have threats in inference phase, put some examples, give the guidance, and then let the companies use the frameworks that they already use.
Okay, thank you. Patrick.
I don't know if we need another standard. Standards are boring. Or at least I used to thought that standards were boring. Until I realized that actually standards are shaping the way we think and the way we see the technologies that we use. And there is very strong, I would say, battle at country level, at world level, on defining this standard and this standard. And I now strongly believe that standards, framework, regulations are shaping the future of AI. And if we are not part of this battle by influencing what we think are the right framework, standard, whatever you want to call it, regulations to define the future of AI, we will let companies like the GAFA or the Asian companies defining the way we will have to use AI in the future. So when it comes to normalization of AI, I don't think the question is whether we should do it or not, because there is already big force in place which are strongly battling to actually normalize AI. The question is, do we want to be part of it? Do we want to act on it? And do we want to make a difference? And I think it starts by understanding what are the risks attached to AI, and I think the responsible AI is a big one of them. We need to bring it, understand this new spectrum of risk, and understand what we want to do with AI as a business, but also as a society, and help shaping the future of AI by paying attention to these boring but useful standards.
Okay. Deepak, can you give your view on that?
Very briefly. The whole motivation behind standardization is so that you have safe, reliable, trustworthy systems, right? Trust. Now that's an operative word here. Trust. I would submit that responsible AI, which includes transparency, accountability, auditability, remediation, fairness, this is what would make us trust AI systems. So.
Okay, Sebastian.
Yeah, maybe it's not normalization, or maybe it's more certification or a stamp to make sure that what we are providing is safe and backed up by external expert. And I joined Patrick on this one. We have to have our own experts and agencies that can stamp our solution rather than relying on Google or Amazon and saying, yes, I'm compatible with Amazon. Yeah, great. I'm screwed. So at this point, maybe not normalization, maybe not just external companies that can ensure for our customer, for the community, that what we are providing is safe. I think that's the point.
Okay, so thank you very much. So, is there any question in the room? Yeah, so.
Somebody should bring them mics. They are gone. Je crois pas que le fil soit assez long.
Apologies, like three of the panelists up here, my French is petite, so I will speak in English, and hopefully everyone can follow along. Thank you very much for what you guys have communicated to us. It's been very enlightening. I see a lot of the struggles and battles that we all have in the industry based on AI, and I have to applaud you for what you guys are doing. The one thing that I've noticed though is as you guys talk about this, I see this in like a 3-line process. You know, we have the advocacy for AI and the potential possibilities and how we can actually use it and structure it. I also see on a 3rd line where there's an audit cyber risk capabilities from that standpoint. However, there's a 2nd line that we really haven't talked about, or you guys haven't really talked about. That's the governance, right? And the governance model that really should oversee and shape that process. And that governance model actually goes through and identifies, well, okay, what kind of standards, what kind of structures you have. It also, I should be able to identify the consequence model. It should also identify and drive the business and the business relationship for AI. So I say that and see what your guys' point of view is from that structure, from that process, because I think you guys are spot on for the line 1, for the line 3, but how would you guys perceive something that really the business should be the champion for that process? Because at the end of the day, when the regulators come in, they're not going to go to you first. They're going to go to the business and the model. And they're not going to say, well, what standard do you use? They're going to ask you, well, what and how are you actually treating AI?
Yeah, so maybe you were not paying attention or didn't be so clear, but yeah, I say that governance was the fundamental and first step of the process, and it was super important. And when I say governance, and you're right, I think it's important to mention it. It's not only about the people and making sure that we have the right functions to support it, because yes, you're absolutely right. Regulators will come at some point when there is an accident, when there is an incident, or just because that's what they do. They will come and the impact will be quite strong. So we need to make sure that we are able to demonstrate that we are not only doing the right things, but can demonstrate and prove not only to our customer, to our third parties that we are doing things, but also demonstrate it. So having the proper governance, having the proper framework policy inside the companies to ensure that we are respected and making sure that it's properly enforced in all functions of the company is of utmost importance to make sure that we are succeeding in this journey.
Thank you. Any other question? Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the presentation. Very insightful. I work in the bioprocess technology, so in the life science, as you know. So my question is about the speed about AI. In the life science industry, we use AI for another terminology, which is active ingredient. I don't know if you know that. An active ingredient is something which is moving. You don't know what you're going to have. If you build millions of vaccine, there is no one similar vaccine at the end. Every single batch is different. So that's the difference between AI for innovation and AI as a commodity. When you move from AI in your innovation, creativity, maybe you can take risk, but we don't hurt anybody. When it becomes a commodity, you have to be sure that your product is good and safe. So that's the safety you have in the industry right now. So I think we have all answers from what you say today. We know what we have to do. We know how to make the commodity with AI safe. So it's just a question of speed. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree completely. It's a question of being reasonable too, maybe. Not putting the vaccine too soon into the market. No, I don't know.
Another question? Yeah.
Yes, I have a little question. Can you hear me? Yeah. I wasn't here at the beginning of the interview, so I'm sorry. Maybe you already respond to that. But with the attack of evasion and poisoning, do you think that in the future the creation of models will take more time because the data scientist will have to take into consideration security, and today it's not something that is I'm not going to say important to them, but they study to create model that works, but that are not necessarily safe, and avoid this kind of attack will need more time, and it will make more difficult to create model. What is your opinion about it? Do you think it's going to take more time in the future to create models in general?
Maybe you want to take it?
Yeah. When you say models, right, you're referring to supervisory machine learning models, I'd imagine, right? And yes, there are going to be better practices around how you build those models. But let me say this, that the fact that you're going to be more diligent about your data doesn't mean it should take more time. In fact, it reduces time, because if you start with garbage in, you get garbage out, right? And then you hash back and forth. It's like a slippery slope where you're spinning wheels. Oh, you tried it, it performed, the model performed, not really, go back again. Try and see if you can refine the data more. Come back again, a lot of effort is spent, considerable time. Again did a model. It improved somewhat, but not maybe by a shade. You need to further improve. Go back again, refine the data more, maybe collect some more data. Whew, ends up taking so much time. Imagine if you were able to systematize this process by practices that you have used to generalize, that's the word here, generalized, so that you can systematize this process, then you have proper checks and balances, quality gates around these individual steps. Yes, you are moving from data to now analyzing and building models from it, but you know that it has passed these KPIs, these metrics. So now you know how well would these models end up performing. And so the iterative refinement may still be there, but it's not spinning the wheels. It may be a lot fewer and a lot quicker from that perspective.
I love how it seems easy with Deepak, you know. How many of you have already done a Q&A on QA on softwares? Maybe you know, you're aware of it. It's not that easy. We even in standard software, we have about 1 bug per 1,000 line written by a developer, okay? It won't be different in IA. That's very critical. And I'm sure that we will need time, not framework, but guidelines to make IA strong and reliable, because it won't be possible to test every case with IA, because of course we are doing IA to respond to something we don't know. So it won't be possible to test it like that. Improve it, yes, of course, but we still need human with data scientists and with business professional, because what we've learned is that we need, of course, an IA professional that knows how to build an engine but at the end it's the business, the man that knows the job, that can say, okay, you can take this file because I know it's a malware. The data scientist doesn't know that. He doesn't know that this one is, maybe it's dangerous, maybe it's not, he doesn't know. We need the professional to help teaching the IA. Agree?
Yeah, almost.
Deepak, 1 minute.
1 minute, yeah, 1 minute. You make good points. The only thing is that if you follow these best practices, and for instance, again, make your AI transparent, right, as a best practice, you insist on that, then you have led to that business user and the data scientist collaborating. Yeah. Because they're speaking the same language now. It's no longer a black box that just says, yes, fraud. And it's actually telling you the reasons. So as a business user, you're able to relate to it. And you're able to go back to Sebastian, the data scientist, and say, Sebastian, I know when I agree with all these predictions, they're great, but when I disagree, it's this variable with the values between those parameters that causes the issue. Can you go back, look at your data for those kinds of issues? So now you have gotten a whole lot of community engaged.
Thank you, Deepak. Okay, sorry for the delay, but we'd like a round of applause for our panelists, and I think this interesting session. Thank you.